Hello and welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today I am showing off all of the brand new characters, bosses, scenarios, mechanics, everything we have to play with because I just received an early copy of Catharsis Divine Wrath. Now, for those of you that don't know already, this is the big box Catharsis. I know, it's an absolute behemoth, and there are two little solo starter decks that incorporate into this entire system. So if you don't want to dive into the medium size, the giant size, you should check out at least the small with the Saga series. Catharsis is a game that was on my 10 games I want to obsess over. And it was on there for a very specific and very important reason, because this game, unlike any other game I think I've played, is packed to the brim full of some of the most mind-blowing asymmetry, the most mind-blowing combination of cooperative, mechanics-driven gameplay ever. With compelling stories, a effective challenge, no matter if you're playing solo, all the way up to high-count multiplayer, and an unyielding amount of potential combinations and opportunities to explore the game system. I mean, let me just show you this real quick so you get a quick sense of why I am saying these things about this game. This deck of cards right here is an image of two of the various characters you can play. I believe from this base game, I think maybe they've incorporated it backwards, but I'm not even sure they have yet. And on the back of each one of these cards is a set of abilities. If you're playing, let's say 2-player, 3-player, 4-player, with other characters at the table, you can take your matching card and set it between you and your ally. Meaning that every single combination of characters, every single unique character you have, has their own unique way of playing and their own unique scenario they might be facing off against. But on top of that, if you're playing 2 players, you'll have a unique pairing and unique abilities that go along with that. If you're playing 3 players, 4 players, 5 players, and so on and so forth, every single one of these cards has new flavor text, has a brand new title, and has a new mechanics engine that's built off of and thematically accurate to the various characters and character types you might be playing at the table, giving you more abilities to utilize. And as I said at the very beginning, maybe you'll start to believe me now, an unyielding amount of potential combinations and ways to make this game sing. Catharsis is a cooperative-driven game. It's a Yahtzee-style game similar to Dice Thrones, except I'll play Catharsis, whereas I'll only play Dice Thrones if my wife begs me or my best friend is having a really bad day, because I don't want to ruin another game by playing one that I really like with him on a day that's just, terribly awful and no good. Dice Thrones isn't a terrible game, but I don't like the fact that it's head-to-head with that Yahtzee-style rolling, and I always, consistently, historically lose. It might be that I'm on a 15 losing streak with my wife Shira that has led me to be so blah about it. But Catharsis is one that Shira and I both agree on. This game dives headfirst into that dice rolling mechanics engine with variable powers depending on what cards you flip for each character you're playing. Their own mechanics engine and their own little puzzle that you have to solve as you're starting to explore through whatever challenge it is you're facing. Sometimes it's a murder mystery, other times it's a slog to the death. And you'll be rolling dice and assigning those dice to various different powers and abilities. But instead of the head-to-head like you have in Dice Thrones, here you're working together or you're playing solo. You're going to be fighting, challenging for an attempt to claim, the grand prize, the honor of the gods themselves, possibly restore this forsaken land into a little bit, maybe a semblance of what it was before the locked-up deities started dreaming. There's a world and lore and piles of stuff to explore. I've done other videos in the past where I've started reading through some of that lore. We're not going to do that here. Here I want to show you the new characters that are available in Divine Wrath and talk to you about how they functionally work. I'll try to make this video quick. I've taken notes, I've written down and read through all of these characters and all of these scenarios we might be facing off against, and we're going to start having little strategy guides and gameplay coming down the road. Now, this unboxing video, the showcase video, and the strategy guides I'm doing are done solely because I'm excited about Catharsis. However, a few of the gameplays that we have coming up, for full disclosure, will be sponsored videos. So keep an eye on that, and we'll make sure to let you know when, that's happening as well. All right, let's talk about our various different characters. We're going to start with the lovely demon Calixia. I should have maybe learned how to say their names well before beginning reading this, but we have the lovely demon Calixia. Calixia is a chaos-oriented creature. I should read a little bit of the flavor text, and I will, but I don't know if I'm going to do it for every single one. This one's pretty good, though. Calixia is a demon from the underworld, known as the Queen of Chaos. She is revered in her realm as the most beautiful demon and feared by all. She has stood since the start of time, and she will be there at the end. But she feels her control over chaos slipping, and she adventures to stop what steals her power. So, she is going to be gaining what's called demonic powers and abilities, and the core structure. Like I said, all of these are custom abilities. You'll only have 6 of them in front of you, depending on the characters and the mechanics. And yes, that is a fly currently circling in the studio. I'm not restarting this video, though, so leave a comment down below for the, conveniently placed fly to get people to engage in the comment section. I don't know. I hired it. It's a paid actor. All right. Either way, all of these abilities will be mixed and matched. So depending on what you've actually drawn in front of you, you're going to have various different abilities as well. That's true for all of these characters, depending on how they work. Calixia is going to work primarily off of dealing damage or doing negative things to her own friends and allies. The core system for her has to do with doing giant abilities, doing beautiful, wonderful abilities, but those abilities have a siphon consequence. And that consequence is going to potentially hit the other players that are around the table that you're going to be working with. So cooperative-ish, if you like a little bit of take that, kind of, in your cooperative games. It's advised that you should be strategic and coordinate with everyone at the table, but if you play like me, you're going to go headfirst into the most powerful ability possible, potentially kill your friend in the process, but you just might take down the 100-year-old dragon. So it's probably worth it, I think. She also has what are called demonic powers. So the more demonic abilities she gets, as she deals more damage, as she takes more actions, the more she might be able to summon and put into play, either in front of her or another player, what's called a demonic power. These are going to be extremely powerful, extremely violent, and probably also potentially extremely damaging as well. So that's her. Let's talk about Durhak. I'm going to get some of these names wrong. Please correct me down below, grammatically precise, and you can let me know exactly how I should be saying them. This is the Devoted. Now, another thing they've done is they've taken a note of how complex the characters are to play and how well they can do solo. So Calixia is a complexity level 4, ability to solo 4. She can stand her own pretty well if you're a decent player. Durhak, however, is a very well-rounded character. He can stand on his own 5 out of 5. So he is a strong character who can survive even if you play him solo, which is one of the things I'm planning on doing. Durhak's family was wiped out by the Trinity, the joint forces of the humans, dwarves, and gnomes who view the orcs as an infestation into their world. She lived as a nomad for years before she found a church that took her in. Her respite was not long. Shortly after becoming a priestess, the church was set ablaze by an unknown party, killing every member present, except her. Durhak walked out unscathed and with divine eyes, ready to crush the forces that bring pain to her and others' lives. She is a powerful, mixed-style player, so she has a lot of abilities that give her a lot of various ways to play, whether you want to be doing powerful, aggressive attacks, playing a little bit more support, or biding your time for a big attack down the road. You can see from some of these titles, Shield My Friends, Divine Wrath, Whirlwind, Divine Strike, There's a lot of good flavor text and story with each one of these cards. Okay, on top of that, I wrote down that she's going to be gaining what's called divinity. As she gains up to 10 potential divinity, she might just be able to summon the goddess herself, the deity that Durhak worships. When she summons the goddess, her divinity will tick down, but she'll get a moment or two to be as powerful as possible. So time it well, use it well, work well with the team that you have around you on the table, and when in desperation or at the exact right moment, summon the divinity, summon the goddess, and lay waste to the battlefield. Gauze. Gauze is the next one. One of my favorite pieces of artwork, actually. Gauze is a lovely wrestler. Such a cool mechanic system with this. I'll tell you the mechanic, then I'll read the flavor text. The core mechanics engine for Gauze is going to deal with cards that have a top and bottom action, but the top action doesn't exhaust your card when you utilize it. Instead, you're going to be adding markers to that top action, allowing you to build up how strong your bottom action's ability will be. And you can see your bottom action has some numbers next to these actions, 2, 3, and 6. You need to have bidden your time long enough that you can take full advantage of Bone Crusher and the Great Wall of Gauze, the Sun and the Moon, the Body Shredder, the Crowd Pleaser. She's a wrestler. So the core system here is going to be by doing small, minor moves, building up your reserve and your stockpile of careful actions until finally you do big, bold actions that exhaust the card, expel whatever, forget the exact term for it, but whatever stamina you've built up, and hopefully break an arm, leg, or 3 in the process. So, Gauze has top abilities that don't exhaust, adding pressure to the cards, and then you finish them. The core mechanic system for Gauze is going to deal with timing. So we have highly aggressive, well-rounded and balanced, and now Gauze is all about timing. Ability to solo is only a 3. It's getting a little bit farther on that end, but maybe not being the best soloable character. Gauze's father was a famous grappler known as the Green Grappling Goblin, but despite being the best in the world, he was never famous. Gauze made it her goal to become the world's greatest wrestler like her father, and she succeeded. She quickly rose through the ranks of the wrestling world as she beat every challenger, despite her small size. After she defeated the 8-year reigning world champion, she disappeared from the fighting world. Will she return to defend her title, or is she seeking greater challenges? We all know the answer to that. She's seeking greater challenges. Her father wasn't famous. She doesn't need to be famous. She wants to go out. She wants to protect people. She wants to save the world. She also wants to pop some heads. So, give her a giant duck, or give her, a murder mystery that she can solve and potentially squeeze the life out of everyone at the party. It was the butler. I knew it all the time. You'll get this reference later on in the video. You can literally play through a murder mystery in Divine Right. It's pretty cool. All right, Luthia the Tinkerer. Come here, Luthia. Let's see what she does. This is a big old pile of cards. So there's the artwork for her. She has Cobble abilities, and Luthia the Tinkerer is going to be built off of a system that allows her to start creating new mechanics engines as she plays. So you'll see level 3. I'll flip them on the back so you can see them here. We have, level 2 teddy bear, level 3 teddy bear, level 1 reloader, level 2 goggles, level 2 bike, level 3 grenade, level 1 belt. All of her cards have a series of 3 potential upgrades. And so as you play with her, as you take actions, you're going to be able to tinker. You're going to be able to upgrade your cards. So instead of exhausting and getting rid of cards when you take damage or try to survive, you instead are going to be slowly adding to the reservoir and the skill and abilities that you have. A long, drawn-out fight or a long campaign where you can build up your various different pieces of technology and utilize them to the best of their ability is going to be a compelling way to play her. This is going to be all about strategic growth. When are you going to flip your active character card to potentially get enough to upgrade one of your abilities, but losing one at the same time? A lot of decisions to be made here. Luthia's mother was a forest elf, and her father was a human. The two were deeply in love, and as lovers do, had a child. But unbeknownst to the father, when elves give birth to a non-elf, The elven parent dies upon their child's birth, giving their elven essence to their child. Luthia's father did his best, but was very focused on his inventions as a substitute for his lost love, leading to Luthia learning about his craft. She now loves creating the craziest objects. So her core game engine, her core game system is going to be getting these cobble points. These cobble points can then be spent to upgrade your decks of cards. A long strategic play is key for her, and she's very simple and very playable solo. So a good place to start if you're starting to dive into this, and you're starting to learn some mechanics engines. One of the best things to do with Catharsis, and it kind of goes against reason, right? You'd think you'd want to play a wide variety of characters, but one of the best things to do is to sit down with a core character, learn how they work, and then start running them through some of the engines. Because it's going to take you a few games to even figure exactly how each one of these core mechanic systems functions and runs. We have Soraten, the Wind Dancer. Where are you, Soraten? Here we are. Okay, Soraten the Wind Dancer has what I think might be my favorite mechanic yet introduced in Divine Wrath. I'm not sure, but I really like the concept. I haven't played with it yet, so I can't say that it's, perfect, but every single one of these cards has a front and back ability. Some of them are up in the air, like Gone with the Wind. Some of them are on the ground, like Take Off, What Lies Beyond, City Dash, so on and so forth. As you play with the Wind Dancer, you have to be taking a series of flying, then earthbound, or earthbound, then flying, back and forth between your abilities, and you'll be able to flip your cards as you play. So you'll have different abilities that are coming and going in play, that are active as you explore these mechanics. But because of that, and because of the way you have to actually take them, this is a big programming engine, setting the board up so you can jump back and forth, so you can launch up into the air, strike heavy, land on the ground, defend yourself, and continue moving quickly like that. And it doesn't just follow for that round or that turn. You have to keep that sequence of play up permanently. Whatever the last thing you did was, you have to do the opposite next time. So the Wind Dancer is all about playing back and forth. Soraten and his wife were one day writing poetry and practicing a famous whip dance for an upcoming play they were performing for the Sky Temple, when a storm so dark it blacked out all light passed through the temple. Though the storm was only a few moments, and the winds were no worse than normal, Soraten found his wife was gone. He flew from the Sky Temple and swore to himself he would never stop until he finds his missing wife. So this long-lost, desperate lover trying to find his sweetheart. We have a few that came from the Mega Pack Characters expansion. We have Emberhoof, the Brew Maiden. Emberhoof, the Brew Maiden, is going to be focused on, drinking. If you want to sit down and play this game with a few good brewskis or a, old-fashioned made next to you, this is the character you're going to want to play. She has a series of various different drinks that she can utilize, and she can share with other players. But a consequence comes with these. So we have Cheers, Bottom Up, Brewfest, Cyber Wizards Wine, Fiend Fusion Fizz, Burroughs Benevolent Brew. The more you drank, according to her, the better off you are. So as you're, drinking the drinks that she gives you, you'll get bonuses according to how many of them you've drunk. But every time you drink one, you'll also have to end up rolling a dice at the beginning of your round. And if you roll more than the number of drinks you have, you'll lose all of your bonuses, and all the drinks will disappear back into her deck. She has a little bit of a buffer. She's built up a decent alcohol tolerance. Some would say she has a problem, but really she's just focused on helping her friends. For her, let's see here. The biggest thing for her is cooperative play. She's going to be very focused on working with other players around the table, giving them and supporting them as much as possible. So if you're a player like me that likes getting into a game, but when you have a lot of players that are being very aggressive, you don't mind taking a step off to the side and playing very cooperatively, she's going to be the perfect one for you. She can be soloed too, which is very interesting to me. I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm compelled. Emberhoof is the owner of one of the most famous pubs in the world. Normal folk and heroes alike come to enjoy her unique drinks. In her role as bartender and head brew maiden, she has heard millions of stories. Emberhoof found that the stories offered inspiration for creating new drinks. But she's soon tired of creating drinks off of a secondhand story. Now she adventures and drinks her way on her quest to create the ultimate drinking menu. We have Lumi, the Ice Elf. Lumi the Ice Elf is going to be another heavily cooperative player. It seems like for this expansion, they focused quite a bit on some of the co-op play. She is going to be slowly developing ice crystals that she'll be sharing with other players around the table. This ice will be a decent defense for them. It'll be building on their cards, protecting them, and making their costs potentially lower and more, well, easily accessible. However, for her to do her most powerful abilities, she has to then expend that ice, and that ice is fragile as well. So there runs a risk of taking away something that people have been using to, well, as a guard or as a shield from losing some of their cards or using their abilities more effectively to do your more powerful attack, or leaving it on their cards until they make a categorical error on their own and all the ice and the resource that you desperately need shatters into a million nothings. Highly cooperative, not very soloable. It's a 1. I think that means it's impossible, but I'm not sure. Unlike her sister Ice Elves, skilled necromancers who have no computations, let me know when you can notice the dyslexia down below, about raising the dead, Lumi's heart was more pure. She didn't want to control the dead, but help protect people from dying. Unable to find like minds among her kin, Lumi moved south. She wanted to experience other cultures, but felt her elven nature trying to adapt her as she traveled. As a result, she uses her magic to maintain a frost aura, preventing her body from transforming. And then finally, the last person that I have in terms of my notes here, we do have a few other characters it looks like they've slipped in, but we have Suna. Suna the Enchantress. She is going to be focused on raising the dead. She kind of has a mob of zombies or of thralls that'll be following her, and she's extremely charming. The interesting play with Suna is she's going to have characters on the board that are creatures, thralls, that she can use as buffers to, avoid attacks. And she'll have a series of powers as well. She'll have both decks that she'll be drawing from. Powers will let her utilize her thralls more effectively. Thralls, however, are necessary for her powers to be useful at all. She's not going to get her hands dirty. So you strike this really interesting balance when you're playing with her of how often do you utilize the thralls to block damage and take some hits? How often do you use her own special ability to prevent that damage from coming across? And how many cards do you have that are utilizing powers in order to use those thralls? Versus how many thralls do you have active on the playing board so you can make sure you always have something useful. Now, she'll never be out of play. I know it sounds like she might, because if you lose all your thralls, what are you going to do? Well, she has a power that'll let her bring 1 back, but 1 is often not going to be enough. Suna, possessing an innate charisma, effortlessly influenced people even without relying on magic. As she matured, her charm found its way to the local lord, weaving him into her control until a mishap with magic occurred, destroying the Lord's mind. Ascending to power fulfilled a childhood dream, yet the monotony of rulership prompted her departure. Convinced of her destiny beyond a governing mundane village, she sought a grander scheme. So, those are the core characters from Divine Wrath and the upgraded expansion. We do have a few other characters here that I have not had the chance to read about or explore, and of course we have all of our giant decks and our champion cards to boot. More ways to vary and make this as asymmetric as possible. We have George Hendel and Flaz and Bog. This looks like a toad, and this looks like some type of hero. George and Kendall. Okay, so I don't know how these work. I haven't read them before, and I don't quite know how they incorporate in. It is Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, though, so maybe these aren't even characters or creatures. Maybe these are people that were fighting in one of these stories. The Forest Adventure, possibly? Very well could be. Okay, we have our enemies. The new bosses you have to face. We have the Thousand-Eyed Dragon. Giant stack of cards here. Beautiful dragon. And this is going to be a unyielding, unending fight to the death. There's no refresh, there's no camp, there's no healing along the way. This is a slog. Prepare for the attacks, do whatever you can to keep your party alive, and continue fighting until only one person is standing on the battlefield. Well, or a group of people. The likelihood of that is very low, though. You're probably going to win this with one person alive, struggling for breath, bleeding out of, all of their orifices. We have a Battle with Fate. Battle with Fate is going to be a battle that has you constantly trying to predict where you're going to be going next. You have various endings, boss effects, and all the different places we might go. We have airships, we have labyrinths, we have arenas, we have the world boss, we have the paradox, we have, what else do we have? We have cyberpunk here. You're going to be doing your best to read the events that have just happened and how they resolved so that you can predict where you're going to end up. Depending on what you've been able to predict and how prepared you are for that final battle, well, that'll determine just how challenging and the unique nature that it takes. So, a little bit of randomization that you do your best to control. We have the Ice Elf Lich. This is going to be wave after wave of zombies. Remember how that lovely Ice Elf was talking about keeping people alive and protecting people? Well, this is the actual nature of the Ice Elves. They do none of that. They don't want to keep people alive. They don't want to protect people. They want to send wave after wave of undead hordes into your doorstep to try to rip you apart from tail to snout. So be prepared for a unyielding battle. Along with that, instead of failing because you lost morale, you're going to be freezing to death instead. So if you want a different way to die, a different losing narrative, and you think, Frostbite on Mount Everest sounds like an interesting way to go out, that's going to provide you every opportunity you've ever looked for. We have the Undercity Crab. This is a very interesting one because it is kind of like a giant game of treasure hunting. And I love that idea. I get a little bit of Moana vibes from the artwork. I'm going to be honest about that. I will probably be singing as I play, and there is treasure all over the place. But you have to make a determination as to how fast and how far down you go versus how many pieces of treasure do you pick up and carry with you. Treasure is going to be lovely. Let's take a quick look at one of them right now. We have Burning Armor, and depending on what level you are or how deep you've gotten in, you're going to be getting more advantages based on that armor being equipped. You're going to be dealing damage with it, you're going to be protecting people with it. It's nasty, it's gross, it's horrible, it's also wonderful, and if anyone knows me when it comes to playing cooperative games, I will always go for the treasure. Now, I'm a team player too. I'll kill people on the way, I'll deal damage to the best of my ability, but if there's a treasure chest in Gloomhaven, I'm sorry. I'm making it to the end of the map or we're replaying the scenario. It's just kind of how it is. So, the crab, I don't know. Sounds really compelling to me. I like the idea of treasure hunting. I'm for sure going to get distracted on the way though, and the city's going to collapse on my head because they've been burrowing underneath it. We have the Murder Mystery. The Murder Mystery is one of the ones that I think I'm confused about and also extremely intrigued by. You can already see the cards are completely different. It's like you're playing a big game of Clue, except that game of Clue ends with an epic boss fight that was determined based on who you figured out was the actual villain. This is like a choose-your-own-adventure story of epic proportions where, depending on how you solve the mystery and what tales you spin along the way, that'll determine if it was the butler or the maid or the widow who decided to kill them. All you know is the doors are locked, you're stuck inside, and you need to murder whoever it is. Or all of them. I don't know why we don't just solve the problem with lots of blood. Or less blood. I hear. A lot of them are political figures. Probably shouldn't leave with a giant cacophony of fluids just flowing through the front door. Okay, that's the last one that I had. However, I have two more in this box. Like I said, I'm not sure if the other two cards that I showed are from these. I'll have to look into that. They don't look like characters to me. So we have the Undercity Crab tracker here, Murder Mystery tracker here. Ah, yes, the Forest Adventure is going to be what incorporates with those other two cards. Has to be, because it says Chapter 3 right here. And we have a lovely little duck with horns. We have a lovely giant flamingo. Yes, it is a subtle reference to the lauded Quackalope. But, and West, who actually, so West Todd is a exhibitor at their booth about as often as he can. He also loves this game and loves the people and the team behind it. Either way, the Forest Adventure is going to be a chapter-based forest story where you're doing your best to, I think, find and steal some golden goose eggs. Not entirely sure about that. And then we have this rotten behemoth of a thing. Where's the title card for this? It's absolutely ugly. but I don't know where the lead card has gone. It probably, got lost in here. The Forgotten God. Might be some of the coolest artwork in this game yet. I think that's absolutely beautiful and terrifying. And also, I want to know what this story is all about. Now, all these stories as well have various different endings, assuming that you even make it to the end and you can actually win. So this is all of the asymmetry that exists here in Divine Wrath. That doesn't include the fact that we can incorporate the sagas, these little chapters that we can mix in, or any of the original characters, original bosses, and original storytelling options. On top of that, we have lots and lots of nice dice to use. But if you noticed, all these graphics have unique dice, and all of this art has the potential for unique playmats. So if you love Catharsis, you can, one, support the little indie creators as much as possible by purchasing all these extra little bonuses and add-ons, and also support the artists that went into creating all of this by purchasing playmats that, well, make your game and your table beautiful. Okay, there we have it. It's a quick overview. Not a quick overview. That's a long overview, a detailed breakdown. I'm going to be diving into all these characters. I want to do little strategy guides where I work through the cards, talk about the ones that I think are strong, ones that you might want to mulligan if you're playing a little bit of house rules and maybe not using some of them, and some of the combinations that I find along the way. Also, if you've watched to this point, I really want to know, what do you want to see me do first? Right now, I'm leaning towards doing a solo game here today, and I'm thinking, potentially, I really want to do the alcoholic, but I think that'll be more fun with more people. So I'm thinking, potentially, going head-to-head against the Undercity Crab, and doing so with Durhak the Devoted, trying to, hold on to my religious ways and only take the treasure that speaks divinely to me. It is still all of it. That is the correct answer, but we won't tell anyone it. Okay. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Whatever the case, though, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Tell me another game that has more asymmetry than this, because I don't think I know of one. I don't think I do. Also, do the math. How many unique combinations is possible in this? It has to be millions, maybe billions. I mean, with the amount of cards and the amount of varying different ways you could actually combine them, I mean, it could be an unending amount of possibility. All right. We'll see you later. Bye.